Um, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wetlands Board meeting on February 25th, 2025. I just have a few slides here to help the Wetlands Board step through the agenda for the evening. So I will go ahead and move forward. Because we are holding a all virtual meeting today, I have a script that can be used to help facilitate this process. Can you all see the script that I pulled up on the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So it starts with item number 1 for the voices, or the members' voices. So
let me read the top part because I'm supposed to do it anyway. So to conduct this meeting virtually, the Wetlands Board needs to make certain findings for the record to evidence our compliance with Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708-3. These motions address that compliance. First, I'm going to conduct a roll and ask each board member participating in this meeting to state your name and your location. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your other colleagues and you confirm that. So I'm Clyde Wilbur. I am participating from a location in Florida because of some family issues. Dean Costello.
Here.
You have to tell me where you're at and if you can hear everybody.
At my home in Springfield, Virginia.
Is Bert Kramer with us?
it doesn't appear so tonight.
I'm sorry?
All right, I was just going to say, I don't believe so.
Very good. John Collins?
I'm here. I'm joining from my home office.
Brian Campbell?
Present and joining from home in the Braddock District. I can hear everybody fine.
Very good. Ed Jessen, our new member?
I'm here. I'm at my home at Bella Reeve Terrace, Alexandria, Virginia.
And Steve Chappelle, I'm sorry.
Hi, Steve Chappelle. I'm here in my house in Lorton, Virginia.
Okay, at this point, I will pass the virtual gather to Brian Campbell so that I can make the appropriate motions. Brian, do you accept the gavel?
I do.
Second, I move that the Wetlands Board will hold an all-virtual meeting electronically through Microsoft Teams and public access to this meeting by Microsoft Teams link provided in the public calendar advertisement and posted on our meeting agenda and on our website. The Wetlands Board has not had more than 2 all-virtual public meetings or more than 50% of this meeting rounded up to the next whole number, whichever was graded during the calendar year. And the Wetlands Board last meeting was not an actually, the last Wetlands Board meeting was an all-virtual meeting, was it not, Catherine?
No.
It was
No.
not. Okay, it was not. Very good. You have to slide it for me. I can't.
That's the end part that I have written down.
Okay, so that was the
so
motion.
Moved. Do I have a second? Sorry, Brian, you have to do that.
Yeah, no problem. Do I have a second?
Second.
Say yes for Dean. Yeah. Okay, any comments? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. And no abstentions? Motion passes. And I will hand the virtual gavel back over to Clyde.
Thank you very much, Brian. So what's our first order of business? I believe it's welcoming Ed. Is that correct, Catherine?
Yes.
So Ed Jessen, welcome to your first board meeting, and you've just experienced some of the fun of living with the public sunshine laws to establish whether we can have virtual meetings or not. And I will personally welcome you. Ed, would you like to say something about yourself?
I'm glad to be here and have the opportunity to sit down and try to solve some of the problems that are out there when it comes to wetlands and obviously living on the river. A lot of this stuff is kind of personal in nature. But I look forward to working with you. My first name actually is Bruce, but I go by my middle name, which is Edward. So just if you happen to see something that says Bruce, I'm not a different person. But retired military, lived in Fairfax County since the early 70s. Went to Officer Kennedy School at Belvoir. So I know the state, especially this part of the state, very well.
Very good, and welcome. Okay, Catherine, what's next on our agenda?
The election of chair and vice chair. Oops, minus the spelling error on the
Very
slide.
good. So the first item is, this is our first meeting of the new year, is to elect a new chair and vice chair. So first, I would take nominations for the chair.
I'll nominate Clyde Wilbur again, if there's no
Yes.
other.
I second.
Are there any other nominations? So I'm going to foolishly agree to do this one more year, but not until you all vote. So I'm going to call the question for the election of Clyde Wilbur as chair for the remaining of this year. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Hearing none, the motion passes. I skipped the discussion part. The second item on the agenda is to nominate a vice chair. Any nominations for vice chair? I will nominate Brian Campbell for vice chair.
I second.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Hearing none, Brian, thank you for agreeing to be vice chair for another year.
Pleasure.
Very good. Catherine, what's next?
The next item was a request for, I believe, just an acknowledgement of a new living shoreline resource that I distributed to the Wetlands Board maybe a couple weeks ago. It's called Designing for Sea Level Rise in Virginia.
Yes, I would point out that we had a new wetlands law passed in 2020, and we were pretty short on guidance. So the Fairfax Wetlands Board developed their own guidelines and put that up on the website. And I do encourage you to all read that. It's pretty short, and I think you will find it quite useful. And in particular, I would suggest reading that document, but almost as important, read the response to comments. Because we put it out for public notice and we got a lot of comments, and the response to comments really clarify a lot of things in terms of the way the board operates and what's required of people. So I would highly recommend reading those response to comments. However, this new document is, what is it, like 150 pages long, Catherine? It's very extensive. It's much better than our guidance. And I would really encourage everyone on the board becoming familiar with it.
Were the comments on the Fairfax County version positive or negative across the board?
They were mostly, clarifications. People would make a statement like, I don't feel I need to get a permit. And of course, the answer is you do. What do we do if our bulkhead falls down? Responses to things like that. And I think the questions and answers that we got really reveal the kinds of concerns that people are going to have when they come before us. And it's really helpful to see the answers to that. The county attorney helped us answer those questions. And I think they're just a really good basis for understanding the kinds of things that might come up in a meeting.
Good.
I think this will be living on the river and knowing a lot of the people on the Potomac side here. There's a lot of confusion, and a lot of times they mistake the fact that they do need a permit, because most of the vendors out there say that they don't. I've seen that again and again and again. So something like this will be very good to have to actually give to somebody if they ask the question, at least in my neighborhood.
Right. I think you're absolutely right, Ed. Most of our enforcement issues have to do with a contractor not getting a permit as he should have. In some cases, even being paid to get a permit and not doing it. But I would also, in a little bit of defense of the contractors, it's a pretty difficult law and regulation to understand. There is a page of exceptions where a permit is not needed, but in the end, those areas where a permit is not needed are so narrow and so defined by other decisions and cases that it is important to encourage people to contact Catherine, to contact the board before they go out and do something. This new guideline designing for sea level rise, they actually have a section for contractors. I believe there is a law moving through the legislature that will require contractors to have some familiarity with the living shoreline laws in order to get a contractor license. I don't know if that's going to pass or not, but I'm pretty sure it passed the House. Do you happen to know what happened with that, Catherine?
No, I haven't heard much about it.
Yeah, and even if it did pass, we don't know if the governor will sign it or not. So you got to wait a little while before we actually know about that. But I think that will help greatly. Having the contractors really know their requirements.
There's also a lot of confusion, at least on the Potomac, as to what this means, especially if some of that, especially the docks and some of the are in Maryland.
Really? Some of the docks extend beyond the pier line?
Yes.
Interesting.
The border down there is I think it's a high water mark.
It is not. The border line is defined what's called the pier line. And the pier line was established at some point in history at the extent of the longest piers in place at that time. The easy way to look at it is to draw lines from point to point. But it is one of those things that really is, you have to actually see the land plat to see where it is. So I think virtually all the docks that are that we have dealt with have been inside the pier line and in Virginia. That doesn't mean that there won't be something where it pops up. We did have a groin once that I think there was a real possible dispute over whether it was in the jurisdiction or not. But I think ultimately we concluded that it was.
I'll have to take a look and send it to you.
Yeah, very good. Appreciate that. I'm sure there's a lawyer someplace who will have a difference of opinion.
Yeah, well, yeah, welcome to the world.
Yes. Anything else on this subject before we move on? Okay, thank you very much. Catherine, what's next on the agenda?
It is the Wetlands Board mitigation and compensation policy fee.
So to just remind everybody why we're talking about this, and John, jump in if you think this was different. At our last two meetings, there's been some question about whether or not we had properly adopted a mitigation fee and compensation policy. And after a great deal of research, Catherine has located the meeting notes where that mitigation and compensation policy was adopted. It was adopted before any of us were on the board, but I believe it is still in place. So John, I know you had some concerns about whether or not that was the case. Have you had a chance to look at those meeting notes?
Good. And am I coming through okay? Am I?
Yes.
With noise. Okay. Yeah, I did. And it's very helpful. And I part of my concern was whether, because I hadn't found any rationale for it, I was wondering whether there was one or if it was just arbitrary. So that is really helpful to see where it all originated from. I see it was based in land values historically, and they established some normative numbers for both square foot and acreage. I did have some follow-up questions for that, and I don't know if this is the time to address them, but just guidance going forward on how we consider this.
Sure, go ahead, please.
So looking at those documents, and that's under, just for anyone who's reading along, I think that was email, it was the summary of mitigation fee history and research PDF. In there, it sounds like stabilizations that occur beneath the water, such as riprap or reinforcements of an existing bulkhead, should not normally require compensation because they would not be considered, in the case of riprap, it would considered to be not loss of wetlands at all. And in the case of stabilization, it sounds like, I'm just going off of page 3, it sounds like it's considered to be a greater net benefit in stopping erosion. I just want to start and see if that's a good understanding of that.
Yeah, you know, John, I've read that 4 times. I can't tell you what it means.
Well, so the second question, and maybe this is something we need to come back on later. I thought I recalled a project a year or two ago that involved the stabilization of a bulkhead. Some kind of a liner was put around the bulkhead, and I believe we calculated based on length times depth. And I wanted to understand if going forward based on this document, it would be more properly length times width, even if that width is inches, or whether it even requires mitigation if it's simply stabilizing. And that may be something we look at in the future. And I don't know if anyone knows what project I'm talking about. I don't have the address offhand.
Yeah, so back to the first issue, I think it would be worthwhile to ask VMRC to give us a drawing that shows us exactly what they mean by that language. They talk about the area of the riprap landward of the shoreline, which, what does that mean? I think I need a drawing or something that tells me what they mean by that. Now, if
well,
all we're talking about
because we're not supposed to do riprap anymore anyway, right?
Yeah, but in places where a living shoreline is not appropriate, which is most of the Potomac properties, right? Most of the Potomac properties have these really long fetches, and there you certainly could allow for repair, even placement of riprap. The only question is, do we call for some mitigation if they end up taking existing tidal wetlands jurisdictional area? And that has happened to us in the past. We had a permit 7 or 8 years ago where a property owner came to us and said they wanted to place a new bulkhead. I think it was 18 inches seaward of an existing bulkhead. And that was in the tidal range, mean low to mean high. So, and it was like 50 feet times a foot and a half. So it's like 75 square feet of mitigation area. And we did ask for a mitigation fee for that area.
Which
I don't
sounds
think,
correct from what I'm reading here.
yeah.
It
In that
doesn't
case,
sound
it's a
like it would
pretty
be
small
correct to go
fee.
based on depth.
Yeah. But the compensation policy is pretty clear. It's looking for a 1-to-1. If you take tidal wetlands, it's there. I would point out that the policy that was adopted in, what was it, 2007, Catherine? Yeah. We're a new board. If we wanted to change that policy, we could. It's not really high on my agenda right now, but if someone really wants to dig into it and make modifications to it, we could. Anything else, John? John, you're
on
muted.
mute, buddy.
I was just saying, just in case that was aimed at me, I didn't have a particular interest in changing it. I just wanted to understand where it come from and what the rationale was.
Yeah, there is a lot of rationale there, and frankly, I think the 28 fee is kind of held up. It appears that the current mitigation bank costs are right around that number. The trouble is that there's none available, but especially not in the local HUC. HUC, is that the right word, Brian? HUC.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to allow for payment for a mitigation because there's just no place to go for it. So maybe a little discussion about that is germane. So typically this board has favored mitigation on site wherever feasible, rather than paying into the mitigation fund. And you may have noticed in that documentation back in 2007 that the Wetlands Board established a relationship with the Northern Virginia Park and Planning Board to hold the money. So since 2007, I think we've accumulated, what, Catherine, about $65,000 in mitigation fees?
Mm-hmm.
Plus minus,
Yes.
but we've never been able to find a project to use it on. Tried to get the county to maybe use the funds. There were some public works projects where it could have been a part of the public works project, but it's just such a small amount of money, relative to public works projects. It's been really difficult to find a use for the money. I have, at times, the board has discussed using the funds for if we could get a series of homeowners, like 4 or 5 homeowners that wanted to do a living shoreline together. I think the board might fund the preliminary design of such a thing to just encourage it, to make it happen. But we don't really have the kind of outreach going on that's available for that. I am kind of hopeful that in the future we may have some better outreach. Brian and I have been working with planning and with LDS and also from the Soil and Conservation Board at trying to facilitate more living shorelines. That really isn't a subject for tonight's meeting, though. Maybe something for the future, because it's a long discussion. Okay. Hearing nothing else on this subject, Catherine, can you take us to the next?
Sure. The meeting minute review and approval.
Yeah, Catherine, can you throw up the meeting minutes in question?
Sure. There's 3 sets, just so that everyone's aware. There
So there's one that's actually a permit hearing. Let's do that one last.
So, Clyde, is it your intention that we're going to step through?
No, I just want to make sure everybody knows what they're voting on. All right. So I don't think there were any votes at this meeting. Is that correct?
This is the May 28th meeting. There was a couple things. No, I don't think there were any votes other than just the typical
So for those of you not, for Ed's purpose here, this was a meeting where we had a closed session, and there are no public notes on the closed session. So would someone like to move these notes for approval?
I'll move the May 28th notes for approval.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Ed, I'm assuming you're going to recuse because you weren't there. Ed, you're muted. Ed, you're muted.
He's working on it.
Okay, give him a second.
There we go. Yeah, I'll abstain on the minutes. Obviously, I wasn't at any of those meetings.
Very good. Catherine, could we, these minutes are approved.
Okay.
Could we move to the next set?
Sure. Okay. Okay, these are for the August 27th meeting.
Okay, so this was the meeting where we actually had a permit, right? I'm going to ask for a discussion on this, but would someone move them first?
Sure, I'll move them again. Brian Kimball moved the
Do
August
we have a
27th.
second?
I second.
Very good. For the discussion, before I begin, does anyone have any discussion of these minutes?
I do not.
Okay, hearing none. Catherine, can you go down to, okay, this board discussion and formal testimony. So Catherine, I think the order you did this is correct. During the formal testimony, you captured what happened, but in the board discussion, you note that members had a discussion regarding new information provided by the property owner regarding plantings proposed in the riprap area. I'd like to add a statement here, perhaps before that states what the property owner stated. And my recollection of this is the property owner stated that they had submitted to the county documentation of live stakes for window bundles to the county. And we needed a statement after that in the discussion that submittal, which went to LDS, was not in the package to the Wetlands Board. The point I'm trying to make here.
LDS?
I'm sorry, say again?
Did you want to call out LDS?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this statement pops up here, and it kind of pops up like in the middle of nowhere. And I want to make it clear that this was just a situation where the applicant provided the information. It's just that his contractor did not put the information in the application to the Wetlands Board. It was really just a mistake by the contractor and frankly, a lack of communication between LDS and planning. But I think it's dangerous to have this just pop up here and not indicate where it came from.
Well, it did come up during the discussion portion. It was not
Yes,
part
I
of a
agree with you.
formal.
Yeah, I agree. So I think your order is okay here, but I'd like to include a statement just prior to, that statement saying new information was provided by the applicant that living shoreline elements were included in the LDS permitting. However, the applicant's contractor did not include those living shoreline aspects in the wetlands permit application.
And Clyde, you feel like the need to call out the contractor, is it sufficient or adequate enough just to say that the application did not include
That's
that
fine.
information?
That's
Okay.
fine. I agree. I'm not trying to make it controversial. I just don't. This looks like we created something out of whole cloth, and I think that's a bad precedent.
Did they identify this in other documents as they submitted to the county, i.e.
Yes.
LDS and their RPA permit?
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
You might want to
They-
include
they-
that permit number
Yeah,
in this document.
yeah. I'm not so much worried about the exact language of the permit number. I'm not sure we even had that at the meeting, but we did have LDS present at the meeting, and they didn't say anything about it. And we did get to see, the applicant presented that he had included these stakes in the application. I'll tell you, Ed, we were on a road to deny this permit. We really were. And if the applicant hadn't jumped up in there and said, look, I'm doing elements of a living shoreline here, which he didn't know, by the way, he didn't know the right language for that. This would have been a far different meeting, and it would have been really painful.
Yeah, that
So,
probably explains why it's taken so long, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm going to make a formal motion here. I move that in these meeting minutes, prior to the word members here, that we include this simple statement.
Well,
The
isn't it just
applicant-
is it
Go
a
ahead.
friendly amendment to my motion?
Yes.
Okay.
The applicant testified that they had included live stakes, which constitute elements of a living shoreline, in their application to LDS. Stop.
Yep.
The applicant's wetlands permit did not include that information. That's all. Brian, can you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I can accept that. Who was my second?
I was, Steve.
You accept it
Steve,
as
you
well?
have to accept as well.
I accept as well.
All right. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
And I assume you recuse yourself? Abstain?
Abstain.
Right. The motion passes. Thank you. Catherine, I think we have one more set of minutes.
Yes, 1 second. Okay, these are the draft meeting minutes from October 21st.
Do I have a motion to accept these minutes?
I accept them. I move to accept them.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I have one bit of a discussion on the second page, section 4, second sentence. Is that? Maybe my copy is different. It seemed like
Yeah,
I had
I
an
did.
incomplete sentence.
I did
Okay.
notice that, and I cleaned it up before I posted them. But yeah,
Okay. So,
Any change,
yeah.
Brian, or are we okay?
No. It was an incomplete sentence, so I just was gonna ask Catherine what the end
Okay.
of the sentence is. So now that I'm reading here, that I have no discussion.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And Ed, I assume you abstain.
Abstain. Yeah.
Very good. Motion passes. Ed, one of the things I will point out about that last meeting minutes, the Wetlands Board typically goes principally on the information that's provided by the applicant and the recommendations of staff. However, the Wetlands Board is always open to testimony provided at the meeting. So it's not solely on the paperwork. We also go by verbal testimony provided, and that's what happened at that meeting. We really had a big change because of the testimony that happened at the meeting. Okay. Catherine, what's next?
comment. Let me just double check if I see any members of the public on the call. I do not. Maybe someone else can double check for me, but I think it's just the Wetlands Board members and county staff.
That would appear
That's
to be
all
the
I see.
case. We're just not that interesting.
And the next item is to progress towards a closed session.
Okay.
And Clyde, before you move on that, I wanted to remind everyone there's a separate Microsoft Teams link for that meeting. We need to use that and then come back into this link.
And Catherine, if I don't show up right away, I'm going to give you a call. I'm having some Teams problems.
Fair enough.
But we need to
Close this.
vote, yes, move or
Move to
take
close
action
this.
on the motions, and then we'll have to come back to this link in order to close out the entire meeting.
Very good.
Should we leave this or leave it
Yes.
open and then start the new
No,
one?
we're going to leave it.
Got it.
So, but we have to do the motion first.
Yes.
No, yeah.
Catherine, can you throw the motion up for me?
Yeah, 1 second. Sorry. We are.
I move the Fairfax County Wetlands Board go into closed session with an attorney from the county attorney's office to discuss specific legal matters required in provision of legal advice relating to Justin Sand and Lovivia Piccone Sand v. Fairfax County Wetlands Board et al. This is case number CL 2024-000-8317 and Fairfax County Wetlands Board v. Justin Sand and Lovivia Piccone Sand and Shoreline Service and Design LLC, case number CL 2025-0000181, as permitted by the Virginia Code sections 2.2-3711A, 7, and 8. Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Was that unanimous?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. We will move on into closed session. I will see you all in a moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
In accordance with the Virginia Code section 2-2- 3712, I move that Fairfax County Wetland Board's members certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under Virginia Freedom Act requirements, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened was heard, discussed, and considered in closed session. The county attorney is authorized to negotiate the issue discussed in the closed session motion in the attempts to come to a settlement.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Ed, a lot of strange and complicated things here. If you would like to be informed about some of these cases that are happening, I'd be happy to sit down with you and Catherine and just walk through some of them to kind of give you a flavor of some of the in-depth details of what's been going on back and forth with many of the permits that we've had, and the other things that the board has been trying to do, just to try to get you up to speed.
I appreciate that. I've written down a bunch of acronyms, so I'll probably be looking at that and see what I can find, but coming back and asking some clarification there.
Right. But, I think we could accomplish a lot if maybe, Catherine, if you're all right with this, just maybe the three of us sit down and just talk through the cases that have been going on and the other attempts we're having, trying to encourage living shorelines and working with LDS and others to try to get some more living shorelines going, and not have people think we're coming after their land. Okay.
Understand.
Do we have anything else on the agenda, Catherine?
No, we do not.
Does anyone have anything further they would like to discuss?
Nope.
Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I motion we adjourn.
All
Ryan
those in favor?
seconds. Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. And John, sometime let's you and me have a coffee together.
Okay. I'm down for
All
that.
right. All right. Thank you very much, Mark.
All right. Thank you.
Get
Take
us
care,
some
everyone.
Everyone.
timelines, will
Good
you?
luck.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah, get
Bye-bye.
us some living shoreline. All right.
Okay.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye. Have a good night.
See y'all later.